This shouldn't be too hard to picture. A president so fragile that a single bad jobs report sends him into a truth social tirade. Then he fires a respected economist just for doing her job. Welcome to America 2025, where facts are the enemy, loyalty is the only real currency, and the economy is booming, even if the numbers say otherwise. Today I want to talk about the firing of Erika McEntarfer, the latest casualty in Trump's war on reality, and what it says about a leader who'd rather burn down the truth than face it. Welcome back to another episode of Your Neighbor on the Left, the podcast where we talk about liberal politics, human decency, and life on the blue side of America's ideological divide. My name is Don Spineless, your flabbergasted host. I may have mentioned in an earlier episode that when I started doing this podcast, I thought about what I would do in a week where there wasn't anything interesting to talk about. This administration is the gift that keeps on giving, so to speak. It was an exceptionally busy week, and by that I mean exceptionally aggravating and inappropriate. Our deep dive for today is on the president's firing of Erika McEntarfer, but first, let's take a look at some hot topics. First up, there is the Texas Republicans' latest gerrymandering scheme, egged on by none other than President Trump himself. Alright, so let's start with the basics. Gerrymandering, it sounds like something your weird uncle might mutter about at Thanksgiving, right? I remember it from high school history. It's actually a sneaky, slimy tactic used to rig elections before a single vote is even cast. Picture this. Politicians get to draw the maps that decide which voters go into which congressional districts. Now, instead of drawing nice, logical lines based on, say, counties, other geography, community ties, they scribble like a toddler on a sugar high to pack voters in ways that guarantee their party wins. It's like letting the fox guard the henhouse, except the fox has a Sharpie and a vendetta. Now, there are two main flavors of gerrymandering: packing and cracking. Packing is when you cram all the voters who might oppose you, say Democrats in Texas, into a few districts as possible, so they have less influence elsewhere. Cracking is the opposite. You spread those pesky opposing voters across so many districts that their votes get diluted, like decaf coffee in a pot of regular. Either way, the goal is to make sure that the party in power stays in power. No matter what the voters actually want, it's democracy, but with a huge asterisk and a smirk. So why does this matter right now? Because gerrymandering turns elections into rigged casino games, where the house always wins. It drowns out the voices of regular folks, especially minorities, who often get sliced and diced into districts that mute their influence. And in Texas, where the population is getting browner and bluer every year, the GOP is sweating bullets. So they've decided to redraw the congressional map mid-decade, a rare move, being that there's no recent census, and a move that screams, "We are scared of a fair fight." So currently in the Lone Star State, Texas Republicans, with a wink and a nod from President Trump, dropped a new congressional map on July 30th. It's so blatantly partisan, it might as well come with a MAGA hat. This map pushed during a special legislative session, aims to flip 5 Democratic seats to the GOP, turning Texas's 38 congressional districts from 25 Republican and 13 Democrat to a jaw-dropping 30-8 split. That's right, 30 Republican seats in a state where Trump won just 56% of the vote in 2024. Math, apparently, is optional in Austin. So here's the playbook. The map targets Democratic strongholds in Austin, Dallas, Houston, and South Texas. For example, in Austin, they're shoving 2 progressive heavyweights, Representatives Lloyd Doggett and Greg Casar, into one district, forcing them to duke it out or retire. In South Texas, they're redrawing lines to make districts held by Representatives Henry Queller and Vicente Gonzalez lean red, betting on recent GOP gains with Latino voters. And in Dallas and Houston, they're carving up Black and Latino communities to dilute their voting power. Representative Mark Vesey's district in Fort Worth, drawn to give Black and brown Texans a voice, is getting chopped like a bad salad. Google Texas Congressional District Map and see what I'm talking about. Now, the excuse? The Department of Justice sent a letter claiming 4 of Texas's current districts, 3 in Houston and 1 in Dallas-Fort Worth, are, quote, unconstitutional racial gerrymanders, end quote. But here's the kicker. It was Texas Republicans who swore up and down in court that their 2021 map was race blind. And now they're using that letter from the Justice Department as a flimsy cover to redraw the map for political gain, not to fix any racial issues. State Representative Todd Hunter admitted as much, saying the new map was drawn for, quote, political performance, end quote. Translation, they're rigging the game to keep the House red in 2026, when midterms could prove to be a bloodbath for the GOP's slim 8-seat majority. And of course, there's the guy who's stirring this pot, President Trump. The former and current president has been pushing Texas Republicans to redraw the map since taking office in January, calling it a very simple redrawing to grab 5 GOP seats. He's not subtle about it. Trump's team sees Texas as a test case for a nationwide gerrymandering spree to cement Republican control of the House. Missouri, Indiana, and Ohio are next on the list. This isn't just politics as usual. It's a calculated assault on the democratic process, orchestrated by a guy who treats elections like a personal reality TV show. There is a tremendous amount at stake here. If this map passes, it could lock in Republican dominance in Texas for years, even as the state grows more diverse and competitive. Democrats would need a tsunami to flip the House in 2026, and even then, they'd be swimming upstream against a map drawn to drown them. Black and Latino voters, who fought for decades to build political power, get screwed the hardest, sliced into districts that silence their voices. And if Texas pulls this off, it's a green light for other red states to follow suit, turning Congress into a GOP fortress no matter how people vote. As Representative Jamie Raskin put it, this is computer-assisted cheating that could leave democracy gerrymandered into oblivion. This isn't just undemocratic, it's anti-democratic. It's saying, we don't trust the voters, so we'll pick the winners ourselves. And when the guy cheering it on is the same one who tried to overturn an election, you know it's not about fairness, it's about power. Now, Texas Democrats aren't going down without a fight, or at least they want to make it seem like they're not. On August 3rd, At least 51 of the 62 House Democrats pulled a Houdini and fled the state, landing in places like Chicago and Boston and Albany. Why? To break quorum. See, the Texas Constitution requires 2/3 of the House, 100 members, to be present to do any business. With only 88 Republicans, the Dems' absence grinds the legislature to a halt. No quorum, no vote, no gerrymandered map, for now. This isn't their first rodeo. Democrats did this in 2003 and 2021, though both times the GOP eventually got their way. This time, they're banking on running out the clock on the 30-day special session. Governor Greg Abbott's throwing a tantrum, threatening to kick them out of office or even arrest them, citing a non-binding 2021 legal opinion from Attorney General Ken Paxton. The Dems' response? A sassy, come and take it. Gotta love the spine, but it's a risky move. Fines of $500 a day, potential legal battles, and the fact that Abbott can just call another session. Still, it's a bold middle finger to a map that's trying to erase their voters. So as the Texas GOP takes out a pen and tries to eliminate, without a vote, seats on the Democratic side of the aisle, the bottom line is these map-scribbling schemers need to be reminded that voters, not Sharpies, should decide elections. Next up, we have a leaked memo that's got my blood boiling and my eyebrows in orbit. Written by Phil Hegseth, brother of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, it's a blueprint for turning the U.S. Army into Trump's personal deportation squad. Oh, and it spits in the face of a little thing called the Posse Comitatus Act. On August 2nd, 2025, the New Republic dropped a leaked memo from the Department of Homeland Security penned by Phil Hegseth, the lesser-known but apparently just as MAGA brother of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Phil, a senior advisor to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem and liaison to the Pentagon, wrote this gem of a memo for a July 21st meeting between top DHS and Pentagon brass. We're talking Pete Hegseth, Joint Chiefs Chairman Dan Kane, Northcom Commander Gregory Gillot, Acting ICE Commissioner Todd Lyons, and a gaggle of other high rollers. The memo's purpose? To plot how the military can, quote, better coordinate, end quote, with DHS for homeland defense, which in Trump speak means mass deportation. Now here's the juicy bit. The memo calls for the U.S. military to play a starring role in Trump's deportation agenda for years to come. It pushes 3 action items, including using the Pentagon's nationwide operational planning capabilities to round up immigrants. It even admits the Los Angeles operation, where Trump sent 5,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines to squash anti-ICE protests in June. It admits that that wasn't perfect, but is the model for future LA-type operations nationwide. The memo demands that military leaders like Joint Chiefs and Northcom feel the urgency of this homeland defense mission and understand its political importance to Trump. Translation: get the troops ready to play border cop or else. This isn't some hypothetical. Trump's already flexed his military muscle, nationalizing the National Guard and sending Marines to restore order against protesters. The memo's tone is crystal clear. DHS wants the Pentagon to go all in, embedding soldiers with ICE and Customs and Border Protection to make deportations faster, meaner, and more militarized. And Phil Hegseth, who's basically Pete's sidekick with a notepad, is the one waving the pom-poms. Now, this memo and what it's about isn't just a bad idea. What it refers to is illegal. This is where the Posse Comitatus Act enters our story. This is a law from 1878 that's supposed to be a guardrail against turning the military into a domestic goon squad. Signed by President Rutherford B. Hayes after Reconstruction, it says, the Army can't be used for civilian law enforcement unless Congress or the Constitution explicitly say so. Violate it, and you're looking at fines or jail time. Why it's called Posse Comitatus? It's Latin for power of the county, referring to sheriffs rounding up posses. Think Wild West, but with less cowboy hats and more accountability. The Act's roots are in the post-Civil War South, where federal troops were being used to enforce Reconstruction laws, and doing so often heavy-handedly. Southern states cried foul, and Congress agreed. The military's job is to fight external enemies, not to police Americans. It's been updated a few times, 1956, 1981, 2021, but the core has stayed the same. Keep the U.S. military out of our streets. There's an exception. The Insurrection Act of 1807. You might have heard about this. It's been talked about, thanks to our Commander-in-Chief. The Act of 1807, which lets the President deploy troops for domestic crises, like riots or rebellions. But it's a high bar, and it's rarely used. Trump would need to invoke it to make this memo's plan legal, and even then, it's a stretch to call immigration enforcement an insurrection. So why does this matter? Because the military isn't trained to be cops. Soldiers are trained to neutralize threats, often with lethal force. Cops, for all their flaws, are supposed to de-escalate and protect citizens. Mixing the two is like handing a sledgehammer to someone who's fixing a watch. It's overkill, and things are going to get broken. The Posse Comitatus Act protects us from a government that could use tanks and rifles to silence dissent or enforce unpopular policies. It's a firewall between democracy and a police state. So yeah, first, it's a blatant middle finger to the law. Using the Army for deportations, rounding up families, raiding neighborhoods is exactly what the law forbids. The memo doesn't even pretend to address this. It just assumes the military will salute and march. Legal scholars like Joseph Nunn from the Brennan Center are sounding the alarm, calling this a push to make military involvement in civilian law enforcement, quote, more common. That's not just illegal, it's a slippery authoritarian slope. But the dangers go beyond legality. Picture soldiers armed to the teeth patrolling your neighborhood, checking papers, dragging people into military trucks. That's not law enforcement, that's an occupation. The memo admits the LA deployment sparked resistance. Volunteers formed patrols, apps warned of ICE raids, and lawyers sued over racial profiling. Now imagine that nationwide. 4 years to come, as the memo puts it. It's a recipe for chaos, division, and violence. Communities, especially Latino and immigrant ones, would live in fear, targeted by a military that's supposed to be protecting them. And let's not kid ourselves, this isn't about, quote, criminal illegal aliens, as Hegseth likes to claim on X. It's about political theater, flexing power and scapegoating immigrants to rally Trump's base. Then there's the precedent. If Trump and Hegseth get away with this, what's next? Using troops to break up protests? To intimidate voters? To enforce whatever policy Trump tweets about at 2 a.m.? The Posse Comitatus Act exists because history shows that militaries policing civilians leads to abuses. Think martial law, think dictatorships. Corey Shake from the American Enterprise Institute called this a frightening escalation. And she's not wrong. Once you normalize soldiers as cops, good luck to putting that genie back in the bottle. This memo isn't just a policy paper, it's a warning. The Hegseth brothers, with Trump's blessing, are trying to reshape the military into a tool for domestic control. Pete Hegseth's already purged the top officers, fired aides, and turned the Pentagon into a MAGA fan club, completely with ex-posts cheering his workouts and Christian prayer services. Now, his brother's memo shows they're not stopping at the border. They want the army in our cities for years. And the most ironic part, all those guys who we've watched for the last 15 years or so flying the Gadsden flag from their pickups, you know, the Don't Tread on Me flag, and all the folks who said they had to have guns for when the government gets out of control, they're the ones who are currently supporting this nonsense. The Posse Comitatus Act isn't just some dusty law. It's a safeguard for our freedom. It says the military serves the nation, not the president's whim. It protects us from a government that could use its force to silence. If we let this memo and its ideas take root, we're not just breaking the law, we're risking the soul of democracy. And for what? So Trump can flex on Truth Social and pretend he's securing the homeland. This isn't strength, it's bullying. And it's on us to call it out. So raise your voice, call your reps, and let's remind the Hegseth boys that, and their boss, that this is America, not a banana republic. Now, one thing I've been told by countless Trump supporters for the last decade or so is that he is truly a smart guy. Now, while I've never seen his transcripts, this story amounts to his wildest math class yet. It ran about slashing drug prices by 1,400%, 1,500%, or even 1,600%. Yes, the man who has talked about his very big brain on more than one occasion apparently thinks drug companies will pay you to take their pills. Now, let me break down why this is not just mathematically impossible, but sort of a neon sign screaming, "I don't get how reality works." Plus, we'll revisit some other Trump gems and that make him sound like he's auditioning for a comedy special. Okay, so on August 3rd, Trump is standing near Air Force One at the Lehigh Valley International Airport in Pennsylvania, regaling reporters with his latest fever dream. He doubles down on a July 22nd White House speech claiming his administration has cut prescription drugs by, quote, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400, 1,500%, end quote. He's not talking 50 or even 100%. No, he's tossing out numbers, quote, the likes of which you've never even dreamed of before, end quote. And he went on to brag, quote, I've used a certain talent that I have and convinced the drug companies that you have no choice, end quote. Apparently, that talent is not math. A 100% price reduction means that the drug costs $0. It's free. A 1,400% reduction, that's negative $1,400 for every $100 pill. So, if your insulin costs $100, Trump's promising the drug companies will cut you a check for $1,400 every time you pick it up. A 1,600% cut? That's $1,600 in your pocket. As the New Republic put it, Trump's claiming drugs will cost negative money. Mathematically impossible doesn't even cover it. This is like saying 2 plus 2 is 22. It's not just wrong, it's profoundly stupid. And the disconnect from reality, it's glorious. Trump's executive order from May 2025, which set a 30-day deadline for drug makers to lower prices or face Medicare price gaps, hasn't even taken effect yet. No prices have dropped. And his 200% tariff proposals on pharmaceuticals could raise costs by about $51 billion annually, according to a pharma-funded report. Yet, he's out here promising negative prices like he's selling magic freaking beans. Now, this is the guy who bankrupted 6 casinos. 3 of them twice. Because apparently, money factories are hard to run when you don't understand basic arithmetic. Now, this drug price rant wasn't just a slip of the tongue. As I mentioned, he said this the month before. And it isn't just a math fail. It's a window into the mind of a guy who treats reality like a choose-your-own-adventure book. He's not just misunderstanding percentages. He's oblivious to how markets, policy, or even basic economics function. Drug prices are high because the U.S. lacks centralized price negotiations, unlike countries with single-payer systems. Trump's most favored nation plan from 2020 was struck down by courts, and his new order is a rehash with no clear legal teeth. Yet he's claiming victory with numbers that would make drug companies pay Americans to take their medication. That's not policy, that's a fever dream from someone who thinks big numbers equal winning. And it isn't really about ignorance. It's about a guy who believes that he can will reality into submission. Harvard economist Jeffrey Frankel called the claims mathematically impossible, as if we needed to be told that. But the president doesn't care. He's banking on the idea that his base is eating up his words just based on bravado, not even checking the math. It's the same mindset that led him to claim trade wars are easy to win, while farmers lost billions. Or when he said tariffs don't raise prices, ignoring every single economist who says they do. This is a man who'd argue gravity is fake because he hasn't fallen down yet. Now, of course, for anyone paying attention, you know that this is not Trump's first rodeo in the land of made-up facts. Let's take a quick tour of some of his greatest hits. In 2016, he called unemployment numbers phony when they were high, but when they dropped in 2017, they were suddenly gospel. In 2020, he claimed COVID would disappear and pushed hydroxychloroquine as a cure, despite the fact that the FDA issued warnings against it. He once suggested injecting bleach to fight the virus, because sure, why not? He's claimed gas prices are under $2 nationwide, they're still over $3, and boasted of signing 200 trade deals, when, at this point, the time of this recording, he's inked fewer than 10. Then, of course, there's the 2024 election, where he insisted he won despite losing the popular vote by 5 million votes. He claimed windmills cause cancer. He said Revolutionary War soldiers took over airports. In 2019, he told a rally that Article 2 of the Constitution gives him, quote, the right to do whatever I want as president, end quote. My favorite? In 2025, he told Newsmax he'd cut drug prices by 1,200% in 2 weeks. Spoiler, it's been months, and prices are still climbing. These aren't gaffes. It's a pattern of someone who's either clueless or banking on the fact that his audience doesn't care. It's goofy at best, dangerous at worst, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why this idiocy always gets a pass. So yeah, this latest rant from Trump is a mathematical train wreck that proves he's allergic to reality and he treats facts like optional seasoning. His base might cheer, but the rest of us see a leader who'd flunk 5th grade math and then fire the teacher for it. But more on that concept in a minute. Thinkers need to keep calling him out on this nonsense. Tweet, post, yell at your uncle's MAGA hat, whatever. Or, how about this? Maybe buy a cheapo calculator and send it to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Wouldn't that be a hoot? All right. So let's dive into the story that is equal parts infuriating and absurd. President Donald Trump's decision to fire Erika McEntarfer, the head of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, because, surprise, he didn't like the job numbers she reported. I'm going to break down the report, talk about Trump's rants about rigged numbers and how this fits into his playbook of lying about failures and axing anyone who won't play along. Plus, I'll look at the question of why Republicans and their voters keep ignoring this kind of stuff. So let me set the stage. On August 1st, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics dropped its July jobs report, and it was a gut punch to Trump's narrative of a booming economy. The numbers, a measly 73,000 non-farm jobs added, way below the 109,000 economists said they were expecting. To make matters worse, the BLS revised down May and June's numbers by a combined 258,000 jobs. May went from 144,000 to just 19,000, and June went from 147,000 to 14,000. That's a 3-month average of 35,000 jobs, the weakest since the 2020 COVID crash. Unemployment went up to 4.2%, and markets tanked as investors panicked over Trump's tariff plans and this grim snapshot of the labor market. Now, Trump's been crowing about a red-hot economy since he took office in January. He's claimed on Truth Social that his policies, tariffs, tax cuts, you name it, are creating jobs like never before. His team, like White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, even bragged last month that BLS reports beat expectations 4 times in a row. So, what did Trump want these numbers to be? Well, he never gave a specific figure, but his posts and his rhetoric suggest he expected blockbuster growth to match his hype. Think hundreds of thousands of jobs, not a paltry 73,000. He's been touting a Trump economic miracle, so anything less than spectacular is a personal affront. When the May and June revisions showed the economy was weaker than he'd claimed, it was like someone yanked the rug out from under his golden comb-over. Now, instead of owning the slowdown, maybe admitting his tariffs are spooking businesses, Trump went full toddler tantrum. He took to Truth Social, calling the report rigged and a total scam designed to make, quote, Republicans and me look bad. He claimed without a shred of evidence that the BLS, led by McEntarfer, faked the numbers before the 2024 election to boost Kamala Harris, and then revised them down post-election to embarrass him. Again, without a shred of evidence. He even misstated a March 2024 revision, claiming an 818,000 job overstatement when it was actually 306,000 spread over several months. But as we know, the running theme is that facts are optional at Mar-a-Lago. Now, enter Erika McEntarfer, a labor economist with a 20-year career at places like the Census Bureau, Treasury, and the White House Council of Economic Advisors. She's a data nerd, not a political operative. Confirmed by a bipartisan 86-8 Senate vote in January of 2024, including a yay from then-Senator J.D. Vance. But on August 1st, hours after the job report dropped, Trump fired her, posting, "I have directed my team to fire this Biden political appointee immediately. She will be replaced with someone much more competent and qualified," end quote. He called her numbers phony and blamed her for faking data to help Harris. No evidence. No evidence at all. The BLS confirmed McEntarfer's termination, with Deputy Commissioner William Wietrowski stepping in as acting head. McEntarfer, classy to the end, posted on Blue Sky that serving as commissioner was the honor of her life, alongside other dedicated civil servants. She didn't take the bait, she didn't sling mud back, but the fallout was immediate. Economists, former BLS commissioners, and even some Republicans like Senators Tom Tillis and Cynthia Lummis called the firing groundless and impetuous. William Beach, Trump's own BLS pick from his first term, said that it sets a dangerous precedent and undermines the Bureau's credibility. Larry Summers, a former Secretary of Treasury, called it, quote, "the stuff of democracies giving way to authoritarianism," end quote. So why is all this so important? The Bureau of Labor and Statistics is a nonpartisan agency crunching numbers from over 100,000 businesses and 629,000 work sites. Revisions like the ones in July are routine. Early reports rely on big firms, while smaller ones, hit harder by economic shifts, arrive later. Trump's own team admitted quirks in seasonal adjustments caused 60% of the revision. But instead of grappling with reality, Trump scapegoated McEntarfer, proving he'd rather fire the messenger than fix the problem. Now, of course, this is not a one-off. Trump's firing of McEntarfer fits a pattern. Lie about failures, claim their successes, and fire anyone who doesn't play along. Let's talk about some of the past incidences of this. In 2016, Trump called BLS employment numbers phony when they were high, but when they dropped in 2017, Sean Spicer, remember him, declared them legit. Fast forward to 2020, when COVID tanked the economy. Trump stood up and claimed it was the best economy in history, despite 14.7% unemployment. He pushed miracle cures, ignoring FDA warnings, and fired Inspector General Steve Linick, Mike Pompeo's misuse of resources. In his first term, Trump axed FBI Director James Comey for not dropping the Russia probe, and Attorney General Jeff Sessions for not shielding him from Mueller's investigation. He tried to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell recently, or at least talked vehemently about wanting to, for not cutting interest rates fast enough. In 2025, he's already purged Pentagon aides and top officers for not saluting his military deportation plans, and now he's threatening Powell again for not slashing rates to juice the economy. Just last month, he fired aides who questioned his tariff plans, which economists, like Larry Summers, insist are killing jobs. So what's the common thread? Trump lies to paint failures as wins. Think, quote, the election was stolen, end quote. Or tariffs are creating millions of jobs. And then, when reality bites, he fires the truth teller. Comey, Sessions, Linick, McEntarfer, They didn't coddle his ego or lie for him, and they got the boot. This is juvenile, like a kid flipping the board when he's losing at Monopoly. It screams narcissism. Psychopathologically, Trump absolutely, positively cannot handle criticism or failure. So he rewrites reality and demands loyalty. As a leader, it's disastrous. Firing experts like McEntarfer erodes trust in institutions. Businesses, investors, families rely on BLS data for decisions. If the numbers are seen as Trump's fan fiction, markets can crash. Hiring stalls, and the economy ends up tanking harder. This tactic also paralyzes government. When career professionals fear for their jobs, they tend to self-censor or quit, leaving us with loyalists who'll say whatever Trump wants. Max Stier of the Partnership for Public Service called this ugly territory for governance. It's not leadership, it's despotism, where facts bend to the boss's whim. And when you're focused on loyalty rather than competence, you get a government that can't solve problems, only create them. Or, case in point, our current cabinet. So why do Republicans let Trump get away with this? From senators to his base, the silence is deafening. Some GOP lawmakers like Tillis and Loomis and Rand Paul grumbled about McEntarfer's firing, calling it impulsive or questioning its effectiveness, but most, like Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer, cheered it on, claiming concerns about revisions without evidence. J.D. Vance, who again voted to confirm McEntarfer, now backs Trump's decision, saying it's the president's right to fire who he wants. No spine, no surprise. When Trump tells Vance to jump, Vance doesn't ask how high, he asks for permission to land. And then there's his base. Trump voters, glued to Truth Social and Fox News, eat up his rigged narrative. Posts on X show MAGA fans calling McEntarfer a, quote, Biden stooge, end quote, and BLS a deep state scam. They don't care about her 20-year record or the bipartisan support she had. She's the enemy because Donald Trump says she's the enemy. That's truly the only criteria. And it isn't new. In 2020, his base bought the stolen election lie despite 60-plus failed lawsuits. They cheered when he attacked Dr. Fauci over COVID warnings. And now they're hyping his tariff wins even as jobs vanish. If you've ever wondered what the phrase cult of personality refers to, this is it. And so what's with the loyalty? For voters, it's partly tribalism. Trump's their guy, so facts don't matter. For GOP officials, it's fear. Tillis faced Trump's wrath for opposing a bill, and others know crossing him means primary challenges or, Truth Social pylons. But his cowardice has consequences. By refusing to call out Trump's lies, like claiming an 818,000 job revision happened post-election when it didn't, they enable a cycle of deception that hurts everyone, including that base. Economists like Michael Strain warn how this erodes trust in information and how that can tank markets and policy. When Republicans shrug at Trump's antics, they're complicit in turning governance into a reality show. But let's zoom out a little bit. Trump's firing of McEntarfer isn't just about one economist. It's a warning shot. When you fire someone for reporting facts, you're saying that the truth simply doesn't matter. The Bureau of Labor and Statistics isn't perfect. It's understaffed, and cuts like the ones Trump proposed, 8% staff reductions, make data less reliable. But firing the boss for bad news? That's Banana Republic stuff. It tells every civil servant, toe the line or get canned. The result? Data we can't trust, policies based on nonsense, and an economy that suffers because businesses can't plan. And it also sets a terrible precedent. If Trump can fire McEntarfer for a jobs report, what's next? Firing a NOAA scientist for a hurricane forecast he doesn't like? Sacking census officials for counting too many Democrats? It's not hypothetical. Trump's already targeted agencies for disloyalty. This is how democracies erode. When leaders prioritize ego over evidence, and followers let them. All right, so to wrap it all up, Trump fired McEntarfer because a jobs report bruised his ego, proving he'd rather lie about failures and purge the truth teller than actually lead. Republicans and his base, too spineless or starstruck or whatever to call him out, are letting him torch the credibility of our institutions. This isn't just about jobs or job numbers. It's about a president who thinks he's above reality. So get loud, call your senators, demand that they insist on truth and integrity, not just positive press, and remind them that leadership means facing facts, not firing them. Okay, that brings my rant to a close, as it does this episode of Your Neighbor on the Left. As always, I want to offer my sincerest thanks for those of you who take the time to download and listen to my opinions on this stuff. It is greatly appreciated, and I would love to hear from any of you, whether you reach out to the podcast via one of our social media platforms. The links for all of those are on our Linktree page, and the URL for that is in the episode description. You can also email the podcast at neighborotleftpodcast@gmail.com. You can review the podcast or the episodes on whatever your favorite mechanism is for listening to them. Get in touch with me if you have questions. Get in touch with me if you have suggestions for future topics. Get in touch with me if you want to tell me I'm an asshat. I want to hear from anyone and everyone. I'll be back on Friday with another installment of Back Porch Files. So until then, be kind, be engaged, be informed, and as always, have the week you voted for.